Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we are back with another brand new video. Now today's video is a little bit weird because recently right here on this channel we have been talking about treating every game like a must-win cup match. Well, tomorrow is literally a must-win cup match as we travel to Paisley for the quarter-finals versus St Mirren. So I guess you could say we've been preparing for this game now all season long. But before we go any further in today's video, as always, just a friendly little reminder in case you are new around here, or even if you're a regular viewer, like 52.8% of our regular audience who hasn't hit that subscribe button, why not do that? It's free, doesn't cost you a penny, it just helps us on our way to hopefully one day reaching 55k. But friendly reminders and YouTube hangs to one side, let's get on with the video then, shall we? And diving right into the old oppositional preview, we of course play St Mirren, who are currently sitting 10th in the SPFL, and if you've not really been paying much attention to them, you might look at that and say, we're against a team that's 10th in the league. The Morelos going to be an absolute cakewalk, an easy street for this Rangers team. But, and unfortunately there is a but, because when you look in St Mirren, they've actually played one less game in the league than the rest of the teams around them, and if they can go ahead and pick up the maximum point in that game they are due, they move all the way up to level on 7 points with Livingston Football Club. Of course, they would drop to 8th with the goal difference, but that is how tight things are down at the bottom, especially when forfeits are being handed out left, right and centre. And that right there leads me perfectly into their form, because believe it or not, coming into this game of football, St Mirren are actually on a 7-match undefeated streak in all competitions, one of the best that they've been able to manage in the top flight of Scottish football for a bit of time. In fact, if you look in it, they've not actually lost a game since they were handed back-to-back 3-0 forfeits, one to Motherwell and one to Hamilton for their seating arrangements on the bus and car sharing to training. No, I'm not kidding. You know, when you look into that decision, it's almost like the Hamilton vice-chairman is on the SPFL board and directly benefited from the SPFL board's decision to hand a 3-0 forfeit, which gave Hamilton 3 points. It's almost like that, people. Oh wait, he is on the SPFL board and his team directly benefited. Never change the SPFL board. Never change. But hey, St Mirren voted in favour of protecting an incompetent board, and when you protect an incompetent board, you get incompetent board decisions. So that's one of those what goes around comes around types of scenarios. But enough speaking of off the field stuff, let's get back to talking about on the field stuff, because we talked about their 7-match undefeated streak in all competitions, and within that run, by the way, they've actually got 2 games versus Aberdeen. Now both of them were up at Paisley, but one of them was a 2-1 win versus Aberdeen that knocked them out of the competition and moved St Mirren into this game versus us. But they also followed that up, showing it wasn't a fluke, by having their next game after beating Aberdeen also against Aberdeen, as they came away with a 1-1 draw versus 10 men Aberdeen. But it's not just the sheep that they can keep penned in. Nah. They have actually went and avenged their 3-0 forfeited loss versus Motherwell by going to Fir Park in their most recent game and coming away with a 1-0 freaking win. So it actually has to be said, despite all the madness and the craziness that's happening off the park, on the park they're doing what matters most, and they're playing pretty damn well. And you know what, if you're a long-time viewer of this channel, especially during the SPFL show days, you'd have known I was very, very impressed with St Mirren's journey and transition into a team that actually gets the ball down and plays football, because right now they are one of the few teams in the top flight of Scottish football that can play out from the back, that can ping a couple of passes together, that can split teams open, because they're not one of those teams that simply play hammer throwing football, usually. Now, the word usually had to be used in that sentence because there's only 2 teams in the entirety of Scottish football that St Mirren changed their tactics and go that hammer-throwing route for, and that's against Rangers and Celtic. And if you go back to our first game versus them this season, that 3-0 at Ibrox, they set up and they tried to limit us and they tried to play off the counter-attacks with their incredible pace out wide and Big Obika up top being able to hold the ball up and bring others into play. And that's the exact type of game I'm expecting to see from St Mirren, and it's completely understandable because where they were able to play actual football versus Aberdeen, there is a massive jump in quality from Aberdeen to Rangers, especially with the way Rangers are playing right now. I didn't blame St Mirren for coming in here with the fear factor well and truly in place, willing to park up 2 buses You can't blame them at all. But before we finish up the old St Mirren preview, have they tweaked or changed their formation or how they set up since we last played them at Ibrox? No, not at all. It's still the 4-1-4-1, which is basically just a 4-5-1, which does drop to a 6-3-1 when they are defending, looking for those counter-attacks. They are still exceptionally well disciplined, well drilled, and they will make it very, very difficult. But where it's different for St Mirren in this game is, if you go back to the Ibrox game where we bet them, there was a lot of talk of trying to limit and Rangers just trying to see if they get sun for the game. That's all kind of flipped because there's real belief coming from their manager and coming from their side that they can cause a cup shock, the Mora. Fingers crossed. They didn't. But with that being said, that's us reached the end of the old oppositional preview. Now it's time to flip over and talk about what matters most, and that is of course Rangers Football Club. And from the Rangers perspective coming into this game, for me there's not been a bigger game or a more important competition that we've played in all frickin' season, because this is the first bit of silverware that can be won. If we can go ahead and get over this hurdle, make it all the way to the final and win, this is the first bit of silverware that we can get our hands on this season. And if we want to go ahead and achieve what we want to achieve by the time the season is done, this competition and the Mora's opposition can't be overlooked. But you know, son, it's so great to be able to sit here 24 hours before a cup competition and know no matter who is selected to represent Rangers Mora, every single one of them will leave everything they've got on that frickin' park. And if you look over the last couple of seasons, whenever these cup games have came around, we've had good players, but these good players have walked into these types of games expecting to win it and waltz through it without even having to work for it. And for me, that mindset has been completely eradicated by Steven Gerrard this season. Are we going into these games confident and composed? Absolutely. But are we going into these games overconfident and arrogant? No. And for me, that is the key difference this season. But as the plums are starting to plump with excitement of this game, let's get on to some team news then, shall we? Because every single person watching today's video knows the importance of this game. So let's flip over and get to some important team news. And this is where the smile and the excitement just kind of drops a little bit, because unfortunately we have some more bad news, and it's about our man Ryan frickin' Jack. Where we saw Hollander come back onto the bench in our previous game, we didn't see Jacko, and we got the reason why today, because unfortunately yet again it's been another false dawn for Ryan Jack. Every time we seem to think we just have him back, he's not progressing just quickly enough, and the injury isn't quite 100% over. So unfortunately he is officially ruled out of this game. Now Gerrard hasn't given us a timetable this time, but he did go on to say with how much he loves Ryan Jack, he wants him back as quickly as possible, but they will be cautious with him and not rush him because they know how important he will be for the second half of this season. Also, by the way, I just want to let you know there's been no injury, setback or anything like that. It's just a progression thing and getting him up to speed to the point where he's able to play games, which is causing the little bit of issue. So don't worry, there's no been injury setback and he's not going to be away for another month or anything like that. It seems to be on a week-by-week basis, so let's hope he's here next week. But where we are hopeful for more positive news from Ryan Jack next week, where we did get some positive news, was about the rest of the squad, because once again we have managed to come through a very tricky battling game without anyone suffering any injuries and knocks. So every other person in our team besides your man Katic is actually eligible for this game, which is a massive headache for Gerrard, and also gives him a very big decision to make tomorrow, especially when it comes to who leads the line. Because I'm not going to sit here and bury my head in the sand about Alfredo Morelos, even though I've sat here a lot this season and I've took a lot of flack for backing what Morelos is doing in this new role, with people slaughtering me and slaughtering the man. I can admit, in that performance right there from Morelos versus Dundee United, it was a shocker and it wasn't up to his usual standards and what he can link the ball up and hold the ball up. I'll admit it, ladies and gentlemen. So it does leave us a very interesting decision to make going into this game, because this is a cup quarter final, and yes, it's against St Mirren, but we can't take anything for granted. So there has to be a bit of a decision made there on who leads the line. Is it going to be Alfredo Morelos? Because remember, he did score 2 goals versus St Mirren already this season, and they could look at this opportunity to get that bad performance versus Dundee United out the way and get his head right and get his confidence back. Or do you ride the hot hand in Cedric, who is looking phenomenal now that he's actually getting played in his frickin' position, eh? Who'd have thought it, ladies and gentlemen? The big man can hold the ball and bring it in, just like Alfredo Morelos, sorry. But he's also got the ability and the belief right now in front of goal. Or do you go with a man, Jermaine Defoe, for me, who is still the best finisher at this football club, and his movement and cleverness could be the key to unlocking this 6, 8, 10-man defence of St Mirren that we face in Mora. It's an interesting one, ladies and gentlemen, and it's why I'm handing it over to you guys. So if you're still watching today's video, who do you want to see leading the line in the Cup quarter-final? Is it Morelos? Is it Ittens? Or is it Jermaine Defoe? Now, some people might say, why are you not mentioning Kemar Roofe? I think Kemar Roofe has well and truly won that right-sided striker role. It seems to fit him absolutely perfectly. So for me, he's a bona fide starter every time in that right role. Now, you might have noticed throughout all of that I've said for this game right here, who do you want to see leading the line? Because going forward, it may just be taken out of Steven Gerrard's hand, because laughably, the SFA has came forward and cited Alfredo Morelos for the Dundee United incident. Even though the referee booked him, even though there was countless other incidents over the last couple of weeks it's been ignored, they finally remembered their job and actually started citing players, and it just happened to be that kid for Colombia. The incredible consistency of that, eh? Madness. Now again, no way am I sitting here excusing Alfredo Morelos, saying he's completely innocent. He was very, very silly in the game versus Dundee United, leading with his arms. But I wouldn't be surprised if they come back and they ban him for a couple of games. So that could actually impact this game right here. If you think you may be losing Alfredo for the next couple of weeks, do you play the laddie in this game just to keep his fitness up and give him something to run it, as he's going to be missing the next couple? Or do you look into those games, and look forward and say, right, if we're going to be without Alfredo, let's try and get Ittens up to speed more, and that may feature in the actual decision on who will be starting the Mora. But I guess as I put you in the old Rangers hot seat to answer that question, it's probably best I jump in there and give my answer, so we all go down in flames, ladies and gentlemen. Despite me seeing the benefit of giving Morelos an opportunity to put that shocker versus Dundee United to one side, because we've seen his Instagram post, he knows, he feels it, he wants it as much as every one of us wants it. It's just not quite falling for him right now, despite everything of that nature. Despite me wanting Morelos back today and what he does best, I do think we go with Cedric Ittens in this game, because this is a big laddie who's took every single split second he's been able to have in a Rangers shirt, especially when he's played in his position, and he's just gave everything. Whether it's the 90th minute tracking and chasing down lost causes, winning the ball back, setting up other people, or he's taking his opportunity in Europe by scoring and putting a man of the match performance. I think if you look at this game, because it's a short leeway from the Dundee United game, I think this game is perfectly suited to your man, Big Cedric. So, aye, I'm going with him. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That is the oppositional preview. That is the Rangers conversation, and that is the Rangers' latest team news. Now we need to push all that together, because it's time for me and thee to try and predict the unpredictable, and that is a Rangers football game. Well, it's unpredictable to some of us. Sharp div. So if you haven't done so already, get involved down there in the comment section below. That is what this channel is always about. It's a bit of fun. It's always interesting to see where your heads are at ahead of the game. So while you guys hopefully get involved, I will give you mine very, very briefly. Rangers 3, St Mirren 0. As much as I've praised St Mirren's form and their defensive nature, I do think it will take us a bit of time to get a goal, but because this is a cup competition, because it is a cup quarter-final, they can't exactly dig in and wait 85 minutes, then maybe throw a couple of people forward to try and nick a point in the game. I think when we do breach the defence, they will go forward, and that is when we will start to take them to task. But my goal scorers are very, very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Cedric Ittens. That's the same player, Craig. I meant Cedric Cedric Tavernier, and your man, Scotty Arfield. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And with all that being said, that's us reached the end of today's video. But before we wrap it up, I just want to say a massive thank you from me to thee for taking the time out your day. And as always, take care of yourselves, everyone. All the best. Enjoy the cup quarter final, and bye-bye.